Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to the next video of the AWS for IT Auditors course. In this video, we are going to review the AWS Identity and Access Management section. If you are interested in signing up for the course, please check out the video description below. Alright, so from the AWS Management Console, I'm going to type in IAM. I'm going to click on Identity and Access Management IAM here for the services. It's going to bring me to the IAM dashboard page where it just has some different information. But what we're going to do is we're going to go kind of through each section here. So the first section I'm going to go ahead and click into is user groups. And in the first group we're going to review is the student group. This is actually the group that you as a student are going to belong to. So if you want to search for yourself here in the users section, you can type student 1 and you can find yourself with your IAM user in that student group. The next thing I want to point out is the permissions. So permissions are how we get the ability to do different things in AWS. So this student group is assigned an AWS managed policy called Security Audit. And I'll click and open this so we can take a look. But the Security Audit AWS managed policy grants you the ability to read security configuration metadata, but not look at actual objects in an S3 bucket or look at other sensitive information. So you can see here it's an AWS managed policy, and it says it's useful for software that audits the configuration of an AWS account. So super helpful to have that, but it won't allow you to look at actual sensitive data unless something's very poorly configured. But we'll walk through that. So again, that was the user groups and the security audit permission. The next user group I want to show is the admin group. And you can see we have 3 groups here, kind of a role-based access setup. So the admin group has 2 users. One is our Rockstar developer, Sparky developer, and then the other IAM user is the IT audit guy. And that's my privileged account in this AWS account. The permissions we've assigned is the AWS managed policy administrator access. And I will open this up and we can click on the JSON here. So if you need to, I like the JSON, it's just a little cleaner and easier for me to understand. But if I click on the JSON here, you can see that this is allowing any action with the star on any resource. So with this permission, this is the full keys to the kingdom of this AWS account. And that is assigned only to the administrator group. So if we go back to the admin group that has administrator access, the AWS managed policy administrator access attached to it, and it has 2 users. So there are 2 admins in this account. The next thing I want to show you that I kind of created for fun is the read-only group. And I'm using air quotes, so I know I'm not on camera, but I'm using air quotes because it's called the read-only group. And if you look at, there are no users in this group, but if you look at permissions here, it has a customer-managed AWS policy. So in the previous 2 groups, they've been AWS managed policies, so they control what permissions are in that policy. But this one is custom. And I created it, and the policy is named read only. So if we click on this, I want to quickly show what this has, and you might need to jump into JSON here. But if you remember from the administrator access, that's right here, this read only is an exact copy of the administrator access policy. But I cleverly named it read only, and I've just created a quick description here. So it's called read-only, but it has the exact same access as administrator access. And I put in the fun note, I hope our auditor doesn't notice. Obviously, this is not best practice. It is very deceiving, and you'd want to avoid this. But it's something that can happen. And it's the same keys to the kingdom, but it's under read-only and not administrator access. So just a reminder that it's not good enough to just look at what is attached to this administrator access. So if we go back here, and if all we were looking at was, the AWS managed policy administrator access, where's that attached? And you can see that that's correctly attached to the admin group intentionally, but we have that separate read-only, air quotes, policy that is attached to the read-only group, but it's very deceiving because it can do the exact same thing. So that is user groups at a high level. The next thing I'll quickly show is users. So here we can see different IAM users, and these are people that can log into the account. And in the users section, we have 3 users. You can see which groups they belong to and some different data about when they logged in and all that stuff. So the one thing I want to point out about users is that you do have the ability to attach permissions directly to a user. So that wouldn't be best practice, and you'd really want to attach it through a group, and you should audit against that. But you would have the ability to attach something directly to a user, and you can see here the IAM user change password, and that is just the ability for that IAM user to change its own password. But that's about the only thing I'd want to see directly attached to an IAM user. The rest of it really should be administered through a group. So those are users, and feel free to click around if you're kind of walking through the course, but we've gone through user groups and users. The next thing I want to show is roles. So roles are a way to grant permissions to services. So one service is Amazon Guard Duty. And if you have a role set up, you can grant permission to Amazon to come in and run some analysis on your account. So some use cases are you can attach it to an AWS service as the trusted entity, or you could attach it to another AWS account. And that's what we have with AuditOps. So I will show you AuditOps here with the permissions. So AuditOps is a tool that goes in and basically analyzes AWS environments and does internal audits. But what I want to show here is that AuditOps, the role, is attached the security audit AWS managed policy, the exact same permissions that you have as a student in this course. And then the trust relationship here is it's pointing to the AuditOps AWS account. So here we are in the AWS account ending in 0826. And what we're saying with this IAM role is we're saying that users in this account or this account can come in and assume this role in our account 0826. So the AuditOps can come in here from 1625, assume the role in 0826, and then has the permissions of security audit to come in and run the audit analysis that it needs to do. So you'd want to just make sure that it has the right permissions based on what role, who you're working with. So that is IAM roles at a high level. The next thing I'll look through or talk through is policies. So we kind of covered this at a high level, but AWS has a number of AWS managed policies. They're kind of demonstrated here with AWS managed in the type, and then they also have the little icon here for AWS managed policies. So like we'd shown with that read-only group, this is that read-only policy that we had walked through. And you can see here that it has the exact same permissions as administrator access, and it's attached to the read-only group. So policies, what you need to remember or take away is that they can be attached to user groups, they can be attached to users, they can be attached to roles, and they are basically ways to give specific permissions to different resources in AWS. So super important there. They can be very customized, and you just want to kind of understand what they are, what permissions they're granting, and all that kind of stuff. So that is policies. I haven't set up any identity providers, so I won't spend too much time here, but this is just a way to set it up where you can grant access through like SAML, so you can have like Google SSO or Okta or some way to connect to the AWS account outside of IAM users. And a lot of more mature organizations with lots of DevOps team, like a large DevOps team, are going to manage their AWS access through other tools and are not going to use IAM users. It's actually it's not a best practice to use IAM users, especially when you have a large team and you want to have more granular permissions. The next area I'm going to walk through is account settings. And this is, I think we have the password policy, so you can see, and I'll even click in and edit and try to show you this policy here. But with your password policy, you have the ability to set a character, so 8 could go to 24. You can require, make it as granular as you want. You can turn on password expiration, type in, 90 days or whatever your company's password policy requires. You can also prevent password reuse. So that would be, when someone's password requires, how many passwords does AWS remember before they're allowed to reuse the exact same password? So, your password policy would probably have something that demonstrates or documents that, but putting a secure high number to prevent password reuse would be highly recommended. I'm also going to demonstrate that in this, based on my permissions as a student, I actually don't have the permissions to save this. So I want to show just based on my access. If I click Save Changes, it's going to check, do you want to set a custom? We can just click Set Custom, but I want to show that there's actually an error that happens because my student group does not have the permissions to update the account password policy. So if we were going to do this and if we were going to update it, we would actually need someone with the permissions to go update that. So just wanted to demonstrate that with the security audit policy, you're not able to change things. You're just able to view security configurations. So we can go back to IAM here, and we've clicked on the account settings. And the last thing that I'm just going to talk through quickly is this credentials report. This credentials report is a way to go in and look at various different information from about IAM users, basically. So if I click download that and I open this up, and you just have to click in your downloads, it gives you a lot of different information about how many IAM users there are, whether or not they have a password enabled, whether or not they have an access key, and that'd be something for another video. But in addition to what we're showing here with the AWS console, you can also use an access key to gather different information, and that's something for another video. But the important thing to know is that access keys can have the exact same permissions as the IAM user, but it's a way you can do things more systematically. So that is a high-level overview of the IAM section. And yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks all.